Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, the OSEP Technical Assistance Call related to the differentiated monitoring and support process for 2019-2020. Give us just a moment as we get everything squared away. All right, Matt, I have given you control if you want to pull up and accept.
I am sorry, I'm having a little trouble pulling this up. Give me one moment.
Not a problem.
I just clicked on something. Is it over to me?
Not yet. Let's see. Did it ask you if you wanted to share your screen?
Yes.
Okay. Let me try one more time. I'm going to take control back just a moment.
Okay.
And then we're going to change presenter to you again.
Okay, here we go.
There we go.
All right, one second.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is Matthew Schneer from the Office of Special Education Programs. Sorry for the initial delay with a slight technical difficulty getting us going. On behalf of Greg Core and Lori, I wanted to welcome you all to today's special TA call. I am presenting this on behalf of Greg, who is on a well-deserved break. He's actually in Ireland with his family, where his daughter is competing in an Irish dance show, which is quite exciting. The purpose of today's special TA call is to roll out the differentiated monitoring support process for the upcoming year of 2019-2020. Even though we haven't quite finished the current year, we are working to move this forward. We're going to go over the process and what you should be expecting very soon. So what you're seeing on the screen there is just a summary, is an agenda of what we're going to talk about. I'm not going to go through all of this, but you see that we're going to talk about DMS and what to expect, the different areas, and the timing, as well as selection of states for on-site visits. So the exciting news that I wanted to share is that we have moved up the timeline for sending out our DMS notices this year considerably, and we are sending out all of the DMS notices tomorrow, Friday, probably in the afternoon Eastern time, and you'll be receiving those. So we wanted you to be prepared for what you're going to get. DMS, as you know, is a key component of a results-driven accountability system, and DMS allows us to fulfill our responsibility to monitor grantees, to differentiate the level of support that we provide to our grantees, to our states and programs, based on what your needs are and what level of support we can provide. We also use it to address state-specific needs, and as a way of allocating our resources. Just like everybody else, we're in a time where we have limited money, limited staff, so we want to make sure that we are focusing our attention and our resources on the places that need them most. So, important thing to note is that the DMS process for the upcoming year is going to be largely the same as it was from last year. We are focusing on the same 4 years that we have, 4 areas that we have focused on for the last several years: compliance, results, the systemic improvement plan, or the OSEP, and fiscal. And as I mentioned, the process is largely the same. The big change is getting out the notices a couple months earlier. In the last several years, our notices have gone out anywhere from the end of October to December, and this provided a lot of challenges for us on our end, because what ended up happening is that DMS activities and a lot of the on-site work were overlapping with much of the other work that we're responsible for related to reviewing your APRs, getting ready for the grants, and all of those kinds of things. So our goal in getting out the notices is to be able to space out the DMS activity throughout the year, but to complete as much of the on-site work as possible prior to receiving the APRs on February 1st. And if that's not possible, to have space to do that in the summer after determinations have gone out. The levels of engagement, which is what we use to make decisions about how we're engaging with you in the 4 different areas, are being derived the same way we have done for the last couple of years. So the results and compliance levels of engagement come directly out of the scores that are in your RDA matrix that got issued to you as part of the determinations. That's for results and compliance. What you'll see there in terms of the numbers are the cut points that we use to make the decisions of intensive, targeted, or universal. So the numbers and data are the same as what was used for determinations, but the cut points do not correspond to what we did in terms of determinations, meets requirements, needs assistance, needs intervention. The cut points are designed so that we can have an appropriate number of states in the intensive, targeted, and universal areas. The other 2 areas, fiscal and OSEP, are obviously not covered in the RDA matrix, so we have internal matrices that we use to score both the fiscal and OSEP, and again come to the levels of determination in each of those areas. So again, as you know, you receive a level of engagement for each of the 4 areas: results, compliance, fiscal, and OSEP. We have this, for this upcoming year, like we did last year, we have selected 4 Part C and 4 Part B states for on-site visits. And we selected those particular states based on the number of intensive and targeted levels of engagement that were in each state. So the more of those intensive or targeted levels of engagement that a state had, the higher they would go on the list where we look to determine who we would visit this year for on-site visits. We did, however, then eliminate from the list any states that we've monitored in the last year, and 3 years, excuse me, and it selected the states with the highest total. There were a few ties, and we had an internal tie-breaking process based on what we knew about the states and what made most sense for us at this time. I do want to note that OSEP, as we always have, in addition to visiting these 4 Part C and Part B states that were selected through this process, we still also reserve the right to do a monitoring trip or a TA visit based upon emerging issues that or information that we become aware of, whether that is through press reports, through information that comes through us through customer service, parents or advocates, or other sources of information. So that is also always a possibility from there. I want to point out to you that for the last few years, we have had a document called the Overview of Differentiated Monitoring and Support. And we developed that document a couple of years ago, and we've updated it to correspond to what we're doing now, with the goal of trying to help you as state directors and Part C coordinators explain what DMS is to your agency's leadership, to the school chiefs or to the lead agency directors. It explains the process at a very high level, doesn't go into many of the details, but it tries to place DMS in context and reduce the concerns about what the levels of engagement mean. These are going to, this overview is currently posted on Grad 360 at the link you see there. And Jennifer, if you could just briefly switch over to show that document, just so I can show what it looks like, that would be great.
All right.
Okay, so what you're seeing on the screen there is the document, the DMS overview. And at the top, obviously, it gives a brief description of what it was, talks about how we use DMS, what areas we review, and the different levels of engagement that we use. If you can keep on scrolling down, please. And we talk about the on-site visits. We talk about what the notices are, which we're going to talk about a little bit more detail in this presentation, and what it means if we have selected a state for targeted or intensive levels of engagement. I think it's important to emphasize here this point that it says here that level of engagement represents the potential risk to the department, not the level of compliance or performance of the state. So just because you are targeted or intensive in an area does not necessarily mean that you're doing anything wrong. It just suggests that there are issues that we would like to discuss and to focus on to make sure there are no other concerns and to make sure we're providing you the support that you need. And then it talks about what the engagement will look like. It also talks about written reports that we will issue for all the on-site reviews. So that is just a resource that's available for your use. As I said, it is on Grad 360. And Jennifer, we can switch back over to my screen, please.
And you should have gotten the request.
Okay, I think we're back up. I'm sorry, what?
I said we're good. And if you want to change it so it's in the full screen mode, though.
Oh, it's not showing in full screen?
Yeah, mine is showing in the presenter.
It's showing full screen for me. I'm trying
Okay. If you hit display settings at the top.
Display settings.
Do you see that? And then swap. There you go.
Okay. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Okay. Let me just make sure. Okay. So in terms of what to expect, as I've mentioned, the notices are going to be issued tomorrow. If you have intensive or targeted levels of engagement in any of the 4 areas, your state lead will contact you to schedule a call soon. That initial call will provide an opportunity to provide clarification of the notices and answer any questions you have and start scheduling any activities that you may have. I also just want to note here that I know many of you have been waiting to have your OSEP feedback calls. We had asked state leads this year to wait until these DMS notices went out to make sure that they were consistent with what we were saying in the notices. These calls can be the OSEP feedback calls as well as the DMS notices calls could potentially be combined into one call if that's what you want to do. That's something that you'll negotiate with your state lead. I will note that if you are a state that has levels of engagement that is all universal in all 4 areas, then the call is voluntary on your end, and you just will let your state lead know when they contact you whether you would like to have that call, though the feedback call should still take place. If you have been selected for an on-site visit, and this is going to be made clear in your notice, you will see it at the top of the notice as well as the cover email, then your state lead is going to be contacting you as soon as possible. As I mentioned, we want to try to schedule visits as soon as possible, starting in October. So we want to start discussing possible dates, what the visit will look like with you, and all of those types of things. If you don't hear from your state lead right away, feel free to reach out directly to them. Okay. So the DMS notice will look like it did last year, maybe with some minor changes, but it should largely look like what you've seen in the past if you've been part of the process. Each DMS notice will include start off with a narrative that just explains the DMS process in general. That'll be the same for everybody. And then it will list all 4 areas, what level of engagement you are in for each of those areas. And then for any area in which you have a level of engagement of intensive or targeted, we will list the major factors that led to the level of engagement that we have determined. In some cases, even if you are targeted or intensive, we may say that there is no further engagement needed. So an example of that would be if your state, for example, has been in targeted level of engagement in fiscal, for example, and the reason why you've been in targeted are for issues that you have no control of, such as the size of your grant, the number of LEAs or EIS programs, and that has been consistent, something you've already discussed with your state lead. There may be nothing else that we can engage in, so we will just say there's nothing more to do at this time. Okay. In terms of the activities, the DMS activities will depend on the level of engagement and area. Intensive fiscal and compliance activities will continue to be something that we are mandatory. All engagement in all of the areas we believe are important, so we would expect, unless there was a reason not to engage with you overall in any area that has targeted or intensive levels of engagement. We will try to coordinate TA activities with TA centers you are already working with, or TA centers that, upon mutual agreement, we think you would benefit from working with, so we don't duplicate and we make sure that we're using the best resources that are out there. As I mentioned before, for those of you that are receiving on-site visits, we will provide written responses with a timeline of 120 days after the end of the monitoring visit from there. Okay. And that's the end of the presentation. At this time, I can take any questions and comments. I meant to mention at the beginning that if you do have any questions, they should go into the chat session. If you've done so already, Jennifer will tell me about those. If you have some that you want to put in right now, go please ahead and do that. Jennifer, do we have any questions at this time?
We do not. We do not have any questions. So as Matt said, if you have any questions, just enter them in the chat and we will make sure that they are answered.
And of course, if you have specific questions related to your situation, those are going to be best answered by your state lead in conjunction with team leaders if necessary. And obviously, you'll have more questions once you see the notices that will be coming out tomorrow. But I'm happy to address any general questions about the process at this time.
And so far, no questions. So.
Okay, let's give it just a few more moments in case anybody is furiously trying to type, and otherwise we'll let you go quickly, and I'm sure you'll be talking to your state lead soon. Okay, well, again, thank you for taking the time to participate in this call. We appreciate all that you do as usual, and I wish you a good rest of the day and enjoy the last few weeks of summer. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.